Live.com podcast, video stream, live stream, all the stuff is there. Ryan is co-host of that show and is currently on the road from Birmingham to Louisville, Kentucky, where Alabama will play tomorrow night. Ryan, what's up, my man?
I'm good, Richard. There is no wrong Alabama song. That was your error there. You can get by with any Alabama song.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I actually listened
Have
to
you ever seen them in concert? Did you ever see them?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they do a really good concert.
In Tupelo. I was so fired up when they played Cheap Seats.
The old baseball song. They're a really good concert. I've seen Alabama live, half a dozen times probably, and they put on a good show every time.
Do they do like a home show concert in Fort Payne ever? Anything like that?
They used to do a thing called June Jam, which was a music festival in Fort Payne. It was out in a big field, as the title would tell you, in the month of June. So it was, of course, hot as 10 hells in Alabama in June. And people would pile. I mean, they would pack them in, man, and they would do a music festival, and they were the headliner, obviously. They did that, I would guess, for like 20 years and discontinued it. There's a rumor that it's coming back. They lost one of the band members, Jeff Cook passed. So, they wouldn't obviously have the original group there. But, it'd be pretty cool to see him back singing again, I think.
Yeah. It's like Woodstock in Northeast Alabama.
Absolutely. Woodstock with barbecue, basically, is what that turns out to be.
How much barbecue is making its way north to Louisville? What's this Alabama crowd going to look like at the KFC Yum Center tomorrow night?
It's hard to know. Alabama hasn't been in this position in quite a while. They've obviously made football trips, a lot of them, but the Alabama basketball team hasn't been this deep when a crowd can attend. If you remember, the last time they were in the Sweet 16, it was in the COVID restriction, so it was a limited crowd in Indianapolis. So Alabama hasn't been in this situation in quite a while, going back to the Mark Godfrey days, in fact. So I don't know how to gauge it. It's a pretty fired-up fan base. They haven't seen this in a while. I think a lot of people think this team can win the national championship. It's a pretty easy drive to Louisville. Of course, Alabama being the overall one, got to pick their site. So they picked Birmingham and Louisville, as you would imagine. So it was a hand-pick for this. And then when you look at the other teams, Princeton doesn't have much of a fan base. San Diego State, I don't think, is going to travel a ton of people to Louisville. Creighton should travel well, but I think it'll be predominantly Alabama and Creighton fans.
Yeah. And certainly an easier trip for Alabama even than it is Creighton. So, I mean, that's a big building too, right? That's roughly 20,000, 20-ish thousand, maybe a touch bigger than that.
Yeah, I think it's even north of 20. I think it's 24, 25,000 people at the KFC Yum Center, which I think is kind of the target. If they don't do it in a football stadium, because a lot of people, Birmingham had an NCAA regional for the first time in quite a while. This past weekend, and a lot of people were already asking us, hey, could they get a regional final, a Sweet 16 and Elite 8? And they're not going to go anything less than 20,000 seats for one of those. So Birmingham's kind of off the board for that on the men's side anyway. But, yeah, I think that's kind of the limit for one of these events is 22,000. And I think the Yum Center is slightly north of that. I can't imagine Louisville built a building that is much smaller than Rupp Arena for their team.
I was going to say, whatever the capacity of Rupp was at the time construction was, they probably went at least one over that.
No doubt.
So it should be good. There's so many storylines that go along with Alabama, so forgive me for starting with the low-hanging fruit. I mean, the Brandon Miller story just it continues, and there's alternate reporting, and there's people owe an apology for how this was covered, and regardless of any of that, there's still just this weird thing that is hanging over Alabama that if they win a national championship, Alabama fans won't care, right? I mean, they'll celebrate a title, but I don't know that you even call it an asterisk, but it's like you don't want a cloud over your first national championship if they were to win it all.
Yeah, and there is that. I don't think there's any doubt. Now, Nate Oats was asked about that today in his media availability. Basically, not that same question, but, basically, is this team having fun was the essential question. It was worded differently. And he said they are. And he said, look, we still understand the gravity of the situation and the sadness that goes along with that. But this team is a very close team. They're having fun. They're having the time of their life was the way he put it. I would say today, Nate Oats We know him pretty well. He's been on our show a million times. I've watched bits and pieces, if not all, of every news conference he's done over the last 2 months. And he looked more at ease and relaxed and less stressed today than he has in quite a while. And I would think some of that had to be, they were out of Tuscaloosa, but it was just in Birmingham. They were out of Tuscaloosa for 3 or 4 days. Now they're in Louisville. They hope for 3 or 4 days. I think that's kind of what this team needed, was to get on the road and get away from a lot of this.
I guess there's something to that. Ryan, that I think the way this is, I'm not speaking for you guys, but the way it is viewed locally is certainly different than the way it's viewed regionally or nationally. And my impression from people that I've talked to in and around the program is the folks at Alabama, like University of and athletics department, feel like they've handled this really, really well. Like, I've talked to people who have said there are high-ranking officials in the athletics department who, like, they're proud of themselves for how they have handled all of this. And it's like everybody else goes, you might have done a master class on how not to handle a situation like this. So from where you sit, not in Tuscaloosa, but really close and covering this story as much as anybody has over the last couple of months, what do you make of the way that Alabama has handled it?
I think there have been some obvious PR missteps that, Nate Oats himself has had to clean up a couple things he has said off the cuff. And then you had Nick Saban saying something Monday night that a lot of people thought was a shot at Nate Oats. And
you don't believe that was an accident, do you?
Richard, and this is I'm in an absolute minority here. I don't believe it was a shot at Nate Oats. I don't think Nick Saban says most anything accidentally. I think Nick Saban was trying to send a message to his team. I genuinely believe, you'll laugh out loud at this, and a lot of people do, I genuinely believe Nick Saban was unaware that Nate Oats had ever said it and had to apologize for it. I don't think people can appreciate the bubble this guy lives in until they've been around it and seen it. This guy is he's really unaware of things that are going on around him that don't involve football, and I am being as honest and genuine about that as I can. I think
it's
didn't
funny
realize
you say that. Not like ha-ha funny, but yesterday we were talking about this. I was like, you got to remember, Nick Saban said he didn't know there was a presidential election going on. Maybe he doesn't know anything about the Brandon Miller story.
Yeah, I mean,
that's obviously a bit of a stretch, but
well, I know he knows the Brandon Miller story exists. I honestly don't think he was aware that Nate Oats had said wrong place, wrong time, and had to apologize for it. And I just do know that those two have a good relationship. It would have done Nick Saban absolutely. There was no reason for him to sideswipe a basketball coach. I mean, what good does that do Nick Saban? And if you believe it was an intentional shot at Nate Oats, and Saban's powerful enough to do that, then it's hard to explain why he's going to great lengths now to say he really didn't intend it to be. And they did a PR photo shoot, just yesterday. I mean, those two don't go hand in hand. I think it was entirely a message to his team, not some sort of bailed shot at Nate Oats.
We got 2 minutes left, and I know you're on the road.
Sure.
So give me tell me if I'm off base on this. Is Javon Quinterly the most important player for Alabama's success tomorrow and moving forward in the tournament?
I would actually, I think he's definitely in the conversation. I would probably, if you force me to pick one, go Charles Bediako.
Okay.
Because Bediako has been giving Alabama on a fairly consistent basis now double-doubles. He is so good defensively as a shot eraser. So Alabama prides himself on their defense. If a guy gets past the guards, he can erase the shot. But what he really does is he gives Alabama an inside offensive presence that keeps you from just wholly selling out to defend the perimeter. And it opens up more three-point shots, which Alabama thrives on. So Quinterly is very, very important. I don't disagree with that. But if you made me pick a guy, I would say it's actually Charles Bediako.
Lost in all the stuff happening off the court with Nate Oats is maybe one of the best decisions that he's made, where I guess it was at the SEC tournament where he slid Quinterly back into the starting lineup after having him as an incredible sixth man. I mean, it was kind of a stroke of genius and I guess a calculated move, but one that you're taking a little bit of a risk with for a guy that's been so good in his role.
Yeah, certainly a gamble. I mean, he was thriving in that sixth-man role, but he has not missed a beat. He's just really good in the postseason. I don't know what it is, but he is a marked player. Now, he got hurt at this point last year. He's only about a year removed from that ACL injury.
Yeah.
And a lot of people credit that, saying that that's kind of the full 100% recovery time is a full year. So that could have something to do with it, too.
Safe travels. Great catching up. You guys have a big time.